The red sun of Kepler 442b was setting behind the Rocky Mountains when Kim Tae-ho checked his weapon one last time. He was a Navy SEAL with the callsign Reaper, and he had seen many dangerous missions, but something felt different about this one. The mining colony on this distant planet had gone silent 3 days ago, and his team was sent to find out why. Tae-ho looked at his 3 teammates who were crouched behind the metal containers near the mining facility. Park Ji-woo was his sergeant, and had been with him for 5 years. The man was tough as steel and never complained about anything. Lee Hyun-sik was younger but had proven himself in combat many times. Yoon Soo-jin was their communications expert, and could hack into almost any system they encountered. The mining facility looked empty from the outside, but their sensors showed strange energy readings coming from inside the main building. The readings were unlike anything they had seen before. It was not human technology, and that made Tae-ho very worried. Earth had made contact with other planets, but they had never encountered hostile aliens before. Tae-ho gave hand signals to his team, and they moved forward carefully. The facility had over 200 workers, but there were no bodies anywhere, no signs of fighting either. It was as if everyone had just disappeared into thin air. The only sounds were the wind blowing through the empty buildings and the distant hum of machinery still running. As they entered the main building, Ji-woo pointed to strange marks on the walls. They looked like burn marks, but they were perfectly circular and seemed to go right through the metal walls. Soo-jin checked her scanner and shook her head. She had never seen energy weapons that could do this kind of damage. Suddenly, the air around them began to shimmer like heat waves. Tae-ho had seen this before in training videos about experimental camouflage technology. He shouted a warning to his team, just as tall figures began appearing all around them. The aliens were humanoid, but much taller than humans with gray skin that seemed to glow slightly. They wore armor that looked like it was made from some kind of living metal. The aliens carried weapons that hummed with energy. Their leader stepped forward and spoke in perfect English, which shocked Tae-ho. How did they know human language so well? The alien said they were from the Galactic Council and that humans were not welcome in this part of space. All human colonies would be removed for the safety of the galaxy. Tae-ho knew they were outnumbered, but SEALs never gave up without a fight. He dove behind a metal crate and opened fire with his assault rifle. The bullets sparked off the alien armor, but some found weak spots and drew strange blue blood. His team scattered and took cover as energy beams began flying everywhere. The aliens had superior technology, but they fought in predictable patterns. Tae-ho had studied warfare his entire adult life, and he could see they relied too much on their advanced weapons. They moved like soldiers following a manual instead of thinking for themselves. This gave him an idea. Ji-woo was pinned down behind overturned equipment and taking heavy fire. Tae-ho created a diversion by throwing grenades at the far end of the building. When the aliens turned to investigate, he sprinted across the open floor and slid behind cover next to his sergeant. The alien leader was shouting orders in their own language now, and seemed frustrated that such primitive humans were giving them trouble. Hyun-sik managed to flank a group of aliens and took out 3 of them before their return fire forced him back. Soo-jin was trying to call for backup, but something was jamming all their communications. They were completely cut off from the outside world. The battle went on for hours. Every time the aliens thought they had the humans cornered, Tae-ho would find a new way to strike back. He used the mining equipment as weapons and set traps using the facility's own systems. His team fought with the desperation of men who knew they were facing extinction. But slowly their ammunition ran low, and the aliens kept bringing in more reinforcements. Ji-woo was hit by an energy beam and went down hard. Hyun-sik ran to help him but walked into a crossfire that cut him down instantly. Soo-jin tried to reach them, but an alien warrior grabbed her and snapped her neck with one twist. Tae-ho was alone now, and filled with rage at seeing his team killed. The rational part of his mind told him to surrender, but SEALs do not surrender. He grabbed 2 grenades and charged the largest group of aliens. The explosion took out 6 of them and left him bleeding on the floor. The alien leader stood over him with what might have been respect in his strange eyes. He spoke again in English, telling Tae-ho that he had never seen a human fight so well. Most species would have given up hours ago when they realized they could not win, but humans seemed to get more dangerous when they were desperate. More aliens entered the building carrying strange net-like weapons that sparked with electricity. They fired the nets at Tae-ho, and the electric shock knocked him unconscious instantly. As darkness took him, he could hear the alien leader talking into some kind of communication device. The leader was reporting that they had captured a human warrior, but warned that if all humans fought like this one, then the galaxy was in serious trouble. When Tae-ho woke up, he was on an alien ship heading away from the human colonies. His hands were bound with metal restraints that seemed to adjust themselves whenever he tried to break free. Through a small window, he could see the stars moving past as they traveled faster than any human ship could go. The same alien leader came to see him and introduced himself as Commander Vex 9. He explained that Tae-ho was being taken to a prison facility where the most dangerous beings in the galaxy were held. The Galactic Council wanted to study human warfare and learn how such a primitive species could be so effective in combat. Tae-ho said nothing, but his mind was already working on escape plans. He had been captured, but he was still alive, and that meant he still had a chance to fight back. The aliens had made a mistake by keeping him alive, because now they would learn exactly why other soldiers called him the Reaper. The prison ship arrived at Proxima Station after what felt like days of travel through space. Tae-ho had used the time to study his captors and learn everything he could about their technology and behavior. The aliens were efficient, but they followed patterns that he could predict. This would be useful information if he ever got the chance to escape. Proxima Station was massive beyond anything humans had ever built. It was carved into an entire moon and had thousands of levels going, deep underground. The docking bay alone was larger than most human cities. Hundreds of different alien species worked there, and Tae-ho realized that the Galactic Council was much bigger than Earth had imagined. Commander Vex 9 personally escorted him through the station corridors. The gravity was heavier than Earth normal, which made walking difficult, but Tae-ho did not show any weakness. Other aliens stopped to stare at him as they passed. Most had never seen a human before, and they seemed curious about this strange new species. His cell was designed for beings much stronger than humans. The walls were made of some kind of energy field that sparkled when he touched it. The bed was just a metal shelf, and there was no privacy at all. Cameras watched his every move, and he could feel scanning beams checking his vital signs constantly. On his first day, a new alien came to see him. This one was different from the warriors who had captured him. It was thin and pale with large eyes that seemed to look right through him. The creature introduced itself as Dr. Keith 7 and explained that it was a mind weaver. Its species could read thoughts and memories directly from other beings. Dr. Keth 7 placed its long fingers on Tae-ho's forehead and tried to enter his mind. But years of SEAL training had taught him how to resist interrogation, including mental attacks. He focused on meaningless details like the color of his childhood bedroom wall or the taste of his favorite food. Every time the alien tried to dig deeper, Tae-ho would shift his thoughts to something else. The sessions went on for hours each day. Dr. Keth 7 would ask about human military bases and troop numbers. It wanted to know about Earth's defenses and how many ships humans had. But Tae-ho gave them nothing useful. Sometimes he would feed them false information just to waste their time. What the aliens did not realize was that each interrogation session taught Tae-ho more about them. He learned that the Galactic Council was made up of 12 different species, who did not always agree with each other. Some wanted to destroy humanity completely, while others thought humans could be useful as slave soldiers. He also learned that they were afraid. The Council had been in power for over 1,000 years, and they had never encountered a species like humans before. Most alien species were either very advanced and peaceful, or primitive and easy to control. Humans were primitive in technology, but advanced in warfare, and this confused them greatly. Dr. Keth 7 seemed frustrated that it could not break into Tae-ho's mind completely. During one session, it made the mistake of letting its own mental barriers down for a moment. Tae-ho caught glimpses of the aliens' memories and learned valuable information about the station's security systems and layout. The Mind Weaver was not the only one who came to study him. Scientists from different species took samples of his blood and scanned his body with strange machines. They were amazed by human physiology and how efficiently it was designed for combat and survival. One scientist commented that humans seem to be naturally evolved for warfare. Between the interrogation sessions, Taeho exercised in his cell and planned his eventual escape. He had memorized the guard rotation schedules and noticed that there were certain times when security was lighter. The guards thought he was just a primitive human who posed no real threat to their advanced facility. Commander Vex 9 visited him regularly to discuss human tactics and strategy. The alien commander seemed genuinely curious about how humans approached warfare. He could not understand why human soldiers would sacrifice themselves for their teammates or continue fighting when victory was impossible. Taeho tried to explain concepts like honor and loyalty, but realized these ideas were foreign to most alien species. They fought for survival or for resources, but the idea of fighting for abstract principles made no sense to them. This was both a weakness and a strength because they could not predict human behavior in combat. During one conversation, Vex 9 showed him recordings of other human colonies that had been attacked by Council forces. Taeho watched in anger as peaceful settlements were destroyed and families were killed or captured. The alien commander seemed to be testing his emotional responses and taking notes on everything. But Vex 9 also revealed something important without meaning to. He mentioned that the Council was divided on what to do about the human problem. Some species wanted to attack Earth directly, while others preferred to contain human expansion by destroying the outer colonies first. This disagreement was slowing down their military response. As the weeks passed, Taeho noticed changes in some of his guards. A few of them seemed to be developing something like respect for him. They had never seen a prisoner who remained defiant after so long in captivity. Most beings would have broken down mentally by now, but he remained strong and alert. One guard in particular caught his attention. It was young for its species and seemed less convinced about Council propaganda regarding human savagery. This guard, whose name was Jekka 9, would sometimes linger after bringing food and ask questions about human culture and society. Taeho began to plant seeds of doubt in Jekka 9's mind. He spoke about human values like freedom and individual rights. He explained how humans believed that all intelligent beings deserve to live without fear of oppression. These ideas seemed to resonate with the young guard who came from a species that had been conquered by the Council centuries ago. The interrogation sessions were becoming less frequent as Dr. Keth 7 realized it was making no progress. The Mindweaver recommended that Taeho be executed as an example to other humans, but the Council had other plans. They wanted to use him in a way that would terrify all of humanity into submission. Commander Vex 9 came to his cell with an offer that surprised him. Instead of execution, Taeho would be given the chance to fight in the station's gladiator arena. If he agreed, he would be given weapons and the chance to face the greatest warriors from across the galaxy. If he refused, he would be executed immediately, and his death would be broadcast to every human colony. Taeho accepted without hesitation. The aliens thought they were giving him a choice between a quick death and a slow one in the arena. But what they did not understand was that they had just given the Reaper exactly what he needed: access to weapons and detailed information about alien combat capabilities. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The news of the captured human warrior spread quickly through the Galactic Council's intelligence network. What started as a routine report became something much more alarming when the researchers began digging into human military records that they had secretly gathered over decades of observation. Dr. Yith 4 was the Council's leading expert on primitive species warfare. She had studied hundreds of civilizations and their military development patterns. But when she accessed the classified files about the human prisoner, she felt something she had never experienced before: fear. The human's call sign was Reaper, and his service record was unlike anything in the Galactic database. In just 10 years of active duty, he had eliminated over 200 enemy combatants across multiple conflicts on different worlds. He had survived situations that should have killed him dozens of times over. Other human soldiers spoke of him like he was some kind of mythical figure. But what terrified Dr. Yith 4 most was learning that Earth had thousands of similar warriors. The humans called them special forces, and they were trained from a young age to be living weapons. Unlike other species who relied on technology and superior numbers, Humans created individual soldiers who could change the outcome of entire battles. She presented her findings to the council leadership in an emergency session. The 12 species, representatives listened in growing alarm as she explained human military doctrine. Humans did not just fight to win battles. They fought with a psychological intensity that bordered on insanity. They would rather die than surrender, and they became more dangerous when cornered. The reptilian representative from the scorpion species dismissed her concerns. His people were the greatest warriors in the galaxy and had never been defeated in open combat. He demanded that this Reaper be thrown into their arena so their champions could demonstrate proper superiority over primitive human fighting techniques. But the insectoid representative from the hive species was more cautious. Her people had encountered humans briefly during scouting missions, and several of their best warriors had been killed by small human patrol units. She warned that human unpredictability made them dangerous, even with inferior technology. Commander, Vex 9 supported Dr. Yith-4's assessment. He had personally witnessed the human prisoner fight for hours against overwhelming odds. The way the human adapted his tactics in real time and used the environment as a weapon showed a level of battlefield intelligence that was rare even among advanced species. The council faced a serious dilemma. Their original plan was to execute the human prisoner and broadcast his death to all human colonies as a warning. But now they realized this might have the opposite effect. Instead of terrifying humans into submission, it might provoke them into a suicidal war that could damage the entire galaxy. The crystalline representative suggested keeping the prisoner alive but isolated. However, Dr. Yith-4 pointed out that humans had a strange concept called never leave a man behind. If they kept the prisoner, Earth's military would eventually mount a rescue mission, regardless of the cost in lives. After hours of debate, they reached a compromise that they thought was clever. The human would be offered a choice to become a gladiator in their combat arenas. This would serve multiple purposes. It would provide entertainment for the galaxy, while also demonstrating that even the best human warriors were inferior to alien champions. More importantly, it would give them a chance to study human combat techniques up close. Every fight would be recorded and analyzed by military scientists from all 12 species. They would learn the secrets of human warfare and develop countermeasures for the eventual conflict with Earth. The arena fights would be broadcast across the galaxy, including to human colonies. When people saw their best warrior being defeated by alien champions, it would break their will to resist. Humans would realize they could not win against the combined might of the Galactic Council. What the council members did not understand was that they were making the same mistake that had doomed countless enemies throughout human history. They were underestimating the psychological impact of their own actions. By putting a human warrior in their arena, they were about to demonstrate something they did not intend to show. Dr. Yith-4 tried one more time to warn them about the dangers. She had studied human psychology extensively and understood that humans responded differently to threats than other species. When most civilizations saw superior force, they submitted to avoid destruction, but humans seemed to become more determined when faced with impossible odds. She explained that humans had a concept called fighting spirit that was difficult to translate into other languages. It meant continuing to resist even when victory was impossible simply because surrender was unacceptable. This psychological trait had allowed them to overcome more advanced enemies throughout their history. The council leadership ignored her warnings. They were confident that their superior technology and numbers would eventually crush human resistance. The arena fights would simply speed up the process by demoralizing human populations across the galaxy. Preparations began immediately for the most elaborate gladiator event in the station's history. Representatives from all 12 council species would attend to witness the demonstration of their superiority. The fights would be broadcast live to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. The human prisoner would face a series of increasingly dangerous opponents, culminating in a battle against their ultimate champion. This final opponent was a cybernetically enhanced warrior from the Silicon species who had never been defeated. The victory would prove once and for all that biological humans could not compete with advanced alien warriors. But as the preparations continued, Strange reports began reaching the Council from their intelligence networks. Human colonies that had received news of the captured seal were not responding with fear as expected. Instead, they were mobilizing their military forces and preparing for war. Even more disturbing were reports that some non-Council species were also taking notice of the situation. Civilizations that had been oppressed by the Council for centuries were watching to see how this human warrior would perform. There were whispers that if a primitive human could challenge the Council, then perhaps other species could resist as, well, Commander Vex 9 began to have doubts about the wisdom of the arena plan. He had spent more time with the human prisoner than anyone else, and had seen something in those dark eyes that made him uneasy. The human showed no fear of death and no concern about fighting superior opponents. If anything, he seemed eager for the opportunity to face alien champions. Dr. Yith 4 made one final attempt to change the Council's mind. She presented evidence that the human military was already analyzing every scrap of information about the prisoner's capture. They would be studying the arena fights just as carefully as the Council scientists would. Every technique revealed would be countered and every weakness exposed would be exploited. But the Council had made their decision and would not be swayed. They were convinced that a public demonstration of human inferiority was the fastest way to end the threat from Earth. They could not imagine that their plan might backfire in ways they had never considered. The first arena fight was scheduled for the following week, and representatives from across the galaxy were already arriving at Proxima Station. What none of them realized was that they were about to witness something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The arena on Proxima Station was a massive underground amphitheater that could hold over 50,000 spectators. The fighting floor was made of some kind of self-repairing metal that could withstand energy weapons and explosions. Holographic displays showed the action from every possible angle, while translators allowed beings from hundreds of different species to follow the commentary. Tae-ho was brought to the gladiator preparation area several hours before his first fight. The weapons room contained armaments from dozens of different civilizations, but he was only allowed to choose from a selection of primitive melee weapons. The Council wanted to ensure that he could not use advanced technology to even the odds against his opponents. He selected a combat knife and a short sword, both made from high-grade alien metals. The weapons felt good in his hands and would be effective against most alien physiologies. More importantly, they were tools he could use to improvise other weapons if the opportunity arose during combat. His first opponent was announced as Grax Prime, a champion from the scorpion species who had never lost a battle in the arena. The 8-foot-tall warrior was covered in natural armor plating and had 4 arms, each ending in razor-sharp claws. His species was known for their aggressive nature and their complete inability to feel fear or pain. The crowd roared with excitement as both fighters entered the arena. Bets were being placed with odds of 100 to 1 against the human surviving more than 5 minutes. Most spectators expected to see the primitive human torn apart quickly, so they could move on to more interesting matchups. Commander Vex 9 watched from the VIP section alongside representatives from all 12 Council species. He had tried to warn them that the human might be more dangerous than expected, but they dismissed his concerns. They were confident that superior alien physiology would overcome any tactical advantages the human might possess. When the fight began, Grax Prime charged forward with the speed and power of a freight train. His 4 arms swung in coordinated patterns that should have overwhelmed any opponent within seconds. But Tae-ho was not where the alien expected him to be. He had rolled to the side at the last moment and slashed across the back of Grax Prime's legs as the creature thundered past. The scorpion warrior spun around with surprising agility and launched another attack. This time, Tae-ho ducked under the swinging arms and drove his knife up between the armor plates, protecting the alien's midsection. Blue blood sprayed across the arena floor as Grax Prime staggered backward in shock. What followed was not the quick execution the crowd had expected. Instead, they watched in growing amazement as the small human warrior used speed and tactics to fight an opponent twice his size and 4 times as strong. Every time Grax Prime tried to use his reach advantage, Tae-ho would get inside his guard and strike at vulnerable joints and nerve clusters. The scorpion species prided themselves on their warrior culture, but they fought with brute force and intimidation. Grax Prime had never faced an opponent who refused to be intimidated and who seemed to understand alien anatomy better than the aliens themselves. Within minutes, he was bleeding from dozens of small wounds that were slowly weakening him. The crowd began to shift from boredom to genuine interest as they realized they were watching something unprecedented. The human was not just surviving against the alien champion, he was actually winning. His fighting style was unlike anything they had seen before, combining elements from multiple martial arts traditions. Dr. Yith 4 was taking detailed notes on every move the human made. She recognized techniques adapted from at least 6 different human combat systems, all modified for fighting against non-human opponents. The prisoner had clearly studied alien physiology during his captivity and developed specific countermeasures for different species. Grax Prime made one final, desperate charge, trying to overwhelm the human through sheer ferocity. But Teho was ready for him. He sidestepped the attack, grabbed one of the alien's arms, and used the creature's own momentum to throw him into the arena wall. The impact cracked several of Grax Prime's armor plates and left him stunned on the ground. Teho did not immediately finish his opponent. Instead, he stood back and waited for Grax Prime to recover enough to continue fighting. This display of what humans called sportsmanship confused many of the alien spectators who were used to fights ending with immediate execution of the defeated warrior. When Grax Prime struggled to his feet, Teho saluted him with his sword before resuming combat. This gesture of respect between warriors was something most alien cultures had forgotten during their technological advancement. It reminded some of the older spectators of legends from their own species' primitive past. The end came quickly after that. Grax Prime was too injured to mount an effective defense, and Teho finished him with a precise strike to a nerve cluster that caused instant paralysis. The Scorpion champion collapsed and conceded defeat, something that had never happened in the arena before. The crowd exploded with noise as beings from hundreds of species tried to process what they had just witnessed. The supposedly primitive human had not only defeated their champion, but had done so with a combination of skill and honor that impressed even his enemies. Betting pools across the galaxy had to pay out massive winnings to the few who had wagered on the human. Over the following weeks, Teho faced increasingly dangerous opponents from across the galactic community. Each fight taught him more about alien combat capabilities while also revealing human tactical advantages to intelligence networks throughout the galaxy. His victories became legendary, and his fighting techniques were studied by military academies on both sides of the emerging conflict. A swift insectoid assassin from the hive species tried to overwhelm him with speed and poisoned weapons, but Teho adapted his timing and turned the alien's agility against him. A heavily armored mechanical warrior from the silicon species relied on integrated weapon systems, but the human found weak points in the armor and disabled the alien's combat programs. Each victory came at a cost, though. Teho accumulated injuries that would have killed most beings, but his SEAL training had taught him to fight through pain and exhaustion. The arena medical staff were amazed by human healing capabilities and recovery time between fights. More importantly, the broadcasts were having an unintended effect across the galaxy. Species that had been oppressed by the Council for generations were watching a lone human warrior prove that their overlords were not invincible. Secret resistance movements began forming on dozens of worlds as the arena fights continued. Back on Earth, Admiral Choi Sung-min was analyzing every second of the broadcast footage. Human military scientists were learning as much about alien capabilities as their enemies were learning about human tactics. The information would be invaluable when the inevitable war began. The Council leadership began to realize they had made a serious miscalculation. Instead of demoralizing human colonies, the arena fights were inspiring them to prepare for military action. Worse yet, other species were beginning to question Council authority for the first time in centuries. Commander Vex 9 visited Teho in his cell after his 5th consecutive victory. The alien commander admitted that he had underestimated human capabilities and asked why the prisoner continued to fight when he could have accepted execution months ago. Teho's answer was simple but profound in its implications. He fought because, after 3 months in the arena, Teho had won 18 consecutive fights against champions from across the galaxy. His victories had made him famous throughout known space, But more importantly, they had given him detailed intelligence about Proxima Station that no human had ever possessed before. During his time as a gladiator, he had mapped every corridor and security checkpoint between his cell and the arena. He knew the guard rotation schedules and had identified the weakest points in the station's defensive systems. Most crucially, he had discovered that the facility housed the Council's central military database and communication hub. The information stored in those computers would give humanity a massive advantage in the coming war. Fleet position supply, routes, and military capabilities for all 12 Council species were contained in those files. Even more valuable were the political intelligence reports that revealed the deep divisions and rivalries between different alien governments. JK-9 had become increasingly sympathetic to Tejo during their regular conversations. The young crystalline guard had begun questioning everything he had been taught about human savagery after watching the gladiator show honor and mercy to defeated opponents. Their discussions about freedom and individual rights had planted seeds of rebellion in the alien's mind. Tejo carefully began recruiting other allies throughout the station. Some were prisoners like himself who had been inspired by his example in the arena. Others were guards and staff members who had grown tired of the Council's oppressive rule over their home worlds. He was building a network of resistance within the heart of enemy territory. The plan he developed was audacious beyond anything attempted in galactic history. Instead of simply escaping, he intended to infiltrate the station's computer core and download the entire military database. This would require precise timing, multiple diversions, and the help of allies positioned throughout the facility. His breakthrough came when he learned about an upcoming special arena event. Representatives from all 12 Council species would gather to witness what they believed would be his final battle against their ultimate champion. Security would be focused on protecting the VIP sections, while the rest of the station would be operating with minimal personnel. The champion they had chosen for him was a cybernetically enhanced warrior called Zek Alpha from the Silicon species. The creature had been specifically designed to kill humans, combining the deadliest aspects of organic and mechanical warfare. Its creators were confident that no biological being could survive against such perfect engineering. Tejo spent weeks studying everything he could learn about silicon technology and cybernetic enhancements. He developed specific tactics for fighting an opponent that could not feel pain and had backup systems for every vital function. More importantly, he realized that the fight itself was just a distraction for his real mission. The plan required split-second timing coordinated across multiple levels of the station. As he fought Zek Alpha in the arena, his allies would begin their assault on critical systems throughout the facility. JK-9 would disable security protocols in the computer core, while other sympathetic guards created diversions in distant sections. Admiral Choi Sung-min had been monitoring the arena broadcasts and analyzing every detail for clues about Tejo's location. The intelligence services on Earth had finally identified Proxima Station and begun planning a rescue mission. What they did not know was that their captured SEAL had his own plans that went far beyond simple escape. Through carefully coded messages hidden in his arena performances, Tejo had been communicating with Earth intelligence. His fighting techniques and gestures contained information about station defenses and the optimal timing for an attack. The messages were so subtle that alien analysts never detected them, but trained human observers could read them clearly. The night before the special arena event, Tejo made final preparations in his cell. He had fashioned improvised weapons and communication devices from components smuggled to him by sympathetic guards. Every item had been carefully tested and hidden, where security scans could not detect them. JK-9 visited him one last time before the fight, bringing what appeared to be a routine meal. Hidden in the food container were detailed maps of the computer core and the security codes needed to access the military database. The young alien had risked everything to help the human warrior, and there would be no going back after tomorrow. As dawn broke over Proxima Station, beings from across the galaxy were arriving for what they expected to be the final defeat of the human gladiator. VIP shuttles brought council representatives, military leaders, and wealthy spectators who wanted to witness history in the making. None of them suspected that they were about to see something very different from what they had planned. Tejo was brought to the preparation area earlier than usual, where he found Zek Alpha waiting for inspection by the arena masters. The cybernetic warrior was 7 feet tall and covered in armor that integrated seamlessly with its mechanical enhancements. Weapon ports lined its arms, and its eyes glowed with targeting systems that could track multiple opponents simultaneously. The Silicon engineers explained their creation's capabilities with obvious pride. Zek Alpha had reflexes enhanced beyond organic limitation strength that could crush steel and defensive systems that made it nearly indestructible. They had created the perfect weapon specifically designed to end the human threat once and for all. But as Taiho studied his opponent, he saw something the engineers had missed. All their technological enhancements were based on predictable programming and logical response patterns. The cybernetic warrior was incredibly dangerous, but it lacked the one thing that made humans so effective in combat: unpredictability. The arena was packed beyond capacity as the special event began. Holographic broadcasts carried the spectacle to billions of viewers across the galaxy, while betting pools offered odds on how long the human would survive against the ultimate champion. Military analysts from every species studied their displays, waiting to see advanced alien technology finally triumph over primitive human tactics. Commander Vex 9 watched from the VIP section with growing unease. Something about the human's behavior seemed different today. Instead of the focused intensity he had shown in previous fights, there was an almost relaxed confidence that made the alien commander very nervous. As the final preparations were completed, Taiho exchanged a meaningful look with JK9, who was stationed near the arena controls. The young guard nodded slightly, indicating that all their allies were in position throughout the station. Everything was ready for the most daring escape attempt in galactic history. The crowd fell silent as both fighters entered the arena for what everyone believed would be the humans' last battle. What they did not know was that the real fight was about to begin in the computer cores and security centers throughout Proxima Station. The gladiator match was just the opening move in a much larger game. The arena erupted with cheers as Zek Alpha and Taiho faced each other in the center of the fighting floor. 50,000 alien spectators watched while billions more viewed the broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone expected to witness the final defeat of the human warrior who had defied the Council for so long. Zek Alpha moved with mechanical precision as it began its attack sequence. Its cybernetic enhancements allowed it to strike faster than any organic being, while integrated armor protected it from conventional weapons. The Silicon engineers had programmed it with combat data from every species in the galaxy, including detailed analysis of human fighting techniques. But Taiho did something the programmers had not anticipated. Instead of engaging the cybernetic warrior directly, he began moving in seemingly random patterns around the arena. His movements looked chaotic, but they were actually a coded signal to his allies throughout the station that the operation had begun. JK9 was the first to act. From his position at the security station, he began systematically disabling alarm systems and unlocking doors in critical areas. His access codes allowed him to create blind spots in the surveillance network while making it appear that everything was functioning normally. In the lower levels of the station, other sympathetic guards began creating diversions. Small explosions in maintenance areas triggered automatic response protocols that drew security personnel away from important facilities. Emergency teams rushed to contain what appeared to be system malfunctions, while the real infiltration went unnoticed. Meanwhile, in the arena, Zek Alpha was becoming frustrated with its inability to pin down the human opponent. Every targeting solution it calculated was useless because Taiho refused to follow predictable movement patterns. The cybernetic warrior had been programmed to fight logical opponents, not someone who seemed to thrive on chaos. Admiral Choi Sung-min watched the broadcast from his flagship as it approached the outer edge of the Proxima system. He had assembled a small but elite rescue force of SEAL teams and special operations pilots. They were vastly outnumbered, but human forces had always specialized in impossible missions. The timing had to be perfect. Choi's ships would attack the station's outer defenses just as Taiho reached the computer core. The external assault would draw attention away from the internal infiltration while providing covering fire for the eventual escape. It was a plan that required absolute trust between forces separated by thousands of miles. Back in the arena, Taiho finally engaged Zek Alpha in direct combat. The cybernetic warrior's strength was overwhelming, but its movements were still bound by programmed parameters. Taiho used improvised weapons and environmental hazards to attack systems that the engineers had considered invulnerable. A piece of broken arena equipment became a lever to overload Zek Alpha's power systems. Reflective surfaces redirected the warrior's own energy weapons back at its optical sensors. Every human innovation forced the cybernetic opponent to adapt, but adaptation took processing time that Taiho could exploit. The crowd watched in growing amazement as the primitive human not only survived against their ultimate champion, but actually seemed to be winning. Bets were frantically revised as spectators realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Commander Vex 9 left his VIP seat to investigate reports of minor system malfunctions throughout the station. His military instincts told him that too many small problems occurring simultaneously could not be coincidental. But by the time he reached the security center, it was too late to stop what was already in motion. Taiho had worked his way across the arena to a maintenance hatch that led directly to the central computer core. While the crowd focused on his spectacular battle with Zek Alpha, he used explosives hidden in his equipment to blast open the sealed entrance. The cybernetic warrior tried to follow, but its bulk prevented it from fitting through the narrow opening. The computer core was a massive chamber filled with crystalline processors that stored the collective knowledge of the Galactic Council. Taiho moved quickly through the maze of equipment, while his improvised communication device uploaded everything to Admiral Choi's approaching fleet. Fleet positions, supply routes, military capabilities, and political intelligence flowed through the data link at incredible speed. Most valuable of all were the files revealing the deep conflicts between Council species and the locations of resistance movements on oppressed worlds. This information would change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Alarms finally began sounding as security systems detected the massive data breach. Council forces throughout the station scrambled to contain what they were beginning to realize was a coordinated assault on their most secure facility. But the diversions had done their job, and critical personnel were scattered across multiple emergency sites. JK-9 and other sympathetic guards held key positions long enough for the data transfer to complete. Some paid with their lives as loyal. Council forces moved to retake control, but their sacrifice ensured that humanity would have the intelligence needed to fight back effectively. In space, Admiral Choi's ships engaged the station's outer defenses in a fierce but brief battle. Human fighters used hit-and-run tactics that confused alien commanders accustomed to formal fleet engagements. The attack drew attention away from the internal infiltration, while providing a clear escape route. Taiho fought his way back through the station corridors as Council forces closed in from all directions. His months of observation had taught him every shortcut and hidden passage, while his arena victories had proven that human tactics could overcome superior alien technology. The reunion with Admiral Choi's rescue team was brief but emotional. As they fought their way to the extraction point, Taiho transmitted the stolen intelligence directly to Earth, while also broadcasting portions to resistance movements across the galaxy. The information spread like wildfire through communication networks that the Council could no longer control. The escape from Proxima Station was a running battle through corridors and docking bays, as Council forces tried desperately to prevent their greatest intelligence disaster in centuries. Human SEAL teams used tactics that alien defenders had never encountered, while Taiho's knowledge of the station layout gave them crucial advantages. As their ship pulled away from the station, Taiho looked back at the facility where he had been held prisoner for so long. The arena lights were still blazing, and he could imagine the chaos among spectators who had expected to see his execution, but instead witnessed the most daring escape in galactic history. The immediate aftermath was everything Taiho had hoped for and more. The stolen intelligence allowed human forces to launch preemptive strikes against Council fleets while they were still mobilizing. More importantly, the broadcasts from the arena had inspired resistance movements on dozens of worlds to rise up against their oppressors. The psychological impact was even greater than the military advantage. Across the galaxy, beings who had lived under Council rule for generations had watched a single human warrior challenge their overlords and win. The myth of Council invincibility was shattered, and replaced with something much more dangerous: hope. Within, days of the escape reports came in of uprisings on council worlds and defections among alien military units. Species that had been enemies of humanity for years began sending secret communications offering alliance against the common threat of council oppression. But perhaps the most significant change was in how humans were perceived throughout the galaxy. No longer seen as primitive barbarians, they were now viewed as potential liberators who represented something the galaxy had almost forgotten: the power of individual courage against impossible odds. The Galactic Council realized too late that, by trying to make an example of the Reaper, they had instead created a legend that would haunt them for generations. The name became a symbol of resistance whispered in secret meetings and carried on the banners of rebel forces across 100 worlds. Tejo returned to Earth as a hero, but he knew the real war was just beginning. The intelligence he had stolen would help humanity survive the coming conflict, but victory would require the same qualities he had shown in the arena: courage, determination, and the willingness to fight for freedom no matter what the cost. The galaxy would never be the same after what had happened at Proxima Station. A single human warrior had proven that oppression could be challenged and tyrants could be defeated. The Reaper had shown them all what it truly meant to be human.